welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to get into my top 10 books of 2022. This was really hard because I read some amazing books this year that I absolutely loved and adored, and so it was hard to narrow down 10, but I really think that this is the absolute most favorite out of this year. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm trying to do it in order of the ones I read first to the ones I read up until the end of this year, and I can't find in my Goodreads the date that I read this book, but I'm pretty sure it was right in the beginning of when I started my Goodreads, so I might have not even logged it yet, but I'm almost 100% sure that I read it this year. And if I didn't, it must have been really close to 2022, so I'm going to include it anyway because I listened to the audiobook this year as well, so I read it and listened to the audiobook. So I did get it in at some point this year. So, and it's My Hope Next Door by Tammy L. Gray. I really loved this book. It was my first Tammy L. Gray read, and it just drew me in. I kept seeing Oshina at Oshina Gotta Read 'Em All. She just kept talking and talking about this book, and I just had to read it, and I ended up loving it. So it's a Christian romance, and it's basically about this girl that comes back to her hometown, and she has a lot of familial struggles and hardships and things that she really has to work through. And then this guy that she grew up with is the neighbor to her parents' house, and he is the pastor's son, and he's just this really great guy that has his own struggles as well. And I just think Tammy L. Gray writes really raw, real situations that many of us have either gone through, could go through, or writes them in a way where even if you haven't gone through these particular things, you can connect to that character in a certain way through whatever they're feeling. And yeah, so it's basically just about her moving back to her hometown to her parents and dealing with the struggles of that. Like, her parents aren't believers, and if I remember correctly, I think she's newer in her faith, so she doesn't have a super strong background of faith at all. I think she's brand new at faith, and then the pastor's son is next door. And yeah, so that's just a little synopsis. The next book is All That It Takes by Nicole Deese, and this is the second book in a little series, so I think it's just the two books. The first one is All That Really Matters by her. It's right here. I did read this year, and it was really good. I'm pretty sure I gave it 4 or 5 stars, but y'all, this one is so much better in my opinion. I loved this story so much. So this is about Val, and she is a single mother, and it's about her making a big move to the mainland. So she's originally from Alaska, but she flies to the mainland to work for her best friend, and in the midst of moving with her son Tucker, which I love him, and moving and adjusting to this whole brand new life, you get to learn more about Val and who she is and what she's gone through, and the story of just healing and redemption. The romance is amazing too, but it's Christian contemporary romance. It's all just so good, and there are some humor bits in it too that make it really funny, but there's also some really serious topics, and I think that Nicole Deese just did an amazing job at touching in and honing in on the really hard things that we can go through in life and how we are able to get through those things and heal. It's just really beautiful. And if I didn't say it, Miles, the main male character in this, is the twin to Val's best friend Molly, who she works for. And the first book's about Molly. So yeah, this was fabulous. 5 stars. Okay, so y'all, I know I'm doing this in reading order of, when I read them, roughly. This duology is my favorite books of the year. Hands down, favorite books of 2022. It is Waves of Mercy by Lynn Austen. This is the first book, and then this is the second book, Legacy of Mercy by Lynn Austen. It's a duology. These books, okay, so I originally heard about it from Tales and Treats with Tay, and I am not like a historical reader per se. I have never really read historical up until this year, and it's Christian historical romance. And I was just like, you know what? The way that Tay was talking about it, I was like, let's just try it. And I am not disappointed. Obviously, my favorite books of the year. Like, these are some of my favorite books of all time. I couldn't pick one or the other because I love the first one for so many reasons. Such deep faith, showing all the things that we can go through and how hard that it can be, and so ultimately that we can trust God through all of it. It's just wonderful. It's based like in the late 1800s, I'm pretty sure, something like that, and it's about this woman named Haisha, I think. That's how you pronounce it. It's spelled a little differently, but her name's Haisha, and she's this older woman. She lives in Holland, Michigan. It's also about this girl, Anna, who is a young woman that's just trying to figure out her life, and she's new to faith, and I think she's engaged at this point, and she's just really struggling, and so she's on vacation in Holland, around near Holland, Michigan, and she ends up getting connected to Haisha in a way, and we get to go back into the story of Haisha through her whole life, all the things that she's been through, how she's grown in her relationship with the Lord, and it's just absolutely beautiful. Lynn Austen writes characters that literally jump off at the page at you. I cannot recommend this enough. It is considered, I think, romance, but romance is like a big part of it, because it's about this Anna's love life of, does she want to marry this man that she's engaged to, and then it's also about Haisha's love life and who she ends up marrying and what all of that entails and what she goes through in her marriages. But I think anybody could read these books and get something out of them. They're beautiful. So this is the first one. I love it, and you're kind of left on a cliffhanger. And this is the second one, Legacy of Mercy, and it just continues the story of Haisha and Anna. Really follows Anna's journey on this one a lot, and you still get Haisha in there. There's some side characters that come in that are new, that bring just a really nice element of, again, a struggle, a hardship, that when you go through those things that you can ultimately trust God. Just wonderful books. I can't wait to reread them. Like, that's how much I love them. Like, I still think about them often. So yeah, favorite books of the year. I think everybody should read these books. I know historical and stuff isn't everybody's cup of tea. Before reading this, I don't think I had ever read historical other than, I guess, Redeeming Love. But y'all, it changed the game for me. Like, if every historical book was written like this, I'd probably read it. So I'm still new to the genre, but this really changed the game for me. The next book is a sweet, clean, romantic, I think it's romantic comedy or just a sweet, clean romance. It does have some really funny bits in there. It's by Anna Conwell, and this was free on Kindle Unlimited. She's a brand new author. I'm pretty sure she's self-published, but y'all, I kept seeing it around bookstagram and just the hype, and I was like, I have to check this book out. I read it in just a couple days. It was so wonderful. There are slight faith aspects. It is absolutely clean. The romance is swoony. like the best sweet little romance book that I have ever read. I actually just read the second one to this. It's going to be like a 4 or 5 book series, I think. Like, Anna deserves to be everywhere. Like, that's how good I think that this book is and that her writing is. Please check it out. She is wonderful. This specifically is about Charlotte and Callum, and it's like enemies to more. It's like workplace romance. It's based in the South, which is really fun. Charlotte is just very fun and quirky and super extroverted, and Callum's more like introverted and more like on the grumpier side, but you get to also learn more in depth about why they are the way they are, and the struggles that they face with certain things and how they work through it. And I love this book, and Anna just writes amazing, sweet little clean romances, and I highly recommend this. I think they're both free on Kindle Unlimited. Absolutely love the cover, pink and glossy, and it fits Charlotte's personality perfectly. The next two are a part of a series. It's going to end up being a trilogy, I think 3 books total, but the third one is not out yet. But if you have been around here, then you already know Autumn by the Sea, the Mer Harbor family series. Again, she is a new author to me this year. Most of these are by new authors, like Lynn Austin was new to me, Anna Conwell was new to me, Melissa Tagg is new to me. Just wonderful books. This story is, I'm not going to give too much away because it's one of those books that it kind of takes some turns, and so I don't want to give anything away by saying certain things. But this is about a grandmother who's trying to find her granddaughter, and there was a tragedy that happened to the grandmother's daughter, and when her granddaughter was a baby, and she's been on the search to find her ever since. The grandmother, Maggie, owns a blueberry farm in Maine, and she has 3 adoptive adult children, and it's just about the family and Maggie and her story and Sydney, and trying to figure out if this family is actually her family. So Sydney's the main female character, and she's been in the foster system her whole life. So basically they're trying to figure out if Sydney is the actual granddaughter to Maggie. And yeah, and there's a mystery, there's romance. I love the main male character in this. I fell in love. Faith is wonderful too. And the second book to Autumn by the Sea is A Seaside Wonder, and I am not going to say what this one is about because it's a big spoiler if you have not read this one but have read the first. And this one is about one of the Maggie's adoptive children, and I have to say, I didn't think anything could beat the first book, Autumn by the Sea. Wow. This second book is like 3rd top book of the year, like besides Lynn Austin's. This book, first of all, the romance is really great. I didn't think I was going to love the main characters as much as I loved the ones in the first book. Blown away. The faith in this one was above and beyond. I read it originally on my Kindle. So many highlights, so much faith. I cried. It was so beautiful. And after, I read it, I read the author's note, and just knowing what Melissa went through while writing this book, it just is so clearly correlated on the page. Like, you feel that emotion, you feel the wrestling, the trying to find the answers, all these things. And to just know, like, what Melissa went through herself, what she said in, like, her acknowledgement, like, author's note. After finishing the story, you can see God working and moving throughout this story, not only fictionally for these characters, but in real life for Melissa, and then in turn for us as the readers. So beautiful. I love the romance in this one even more than the first one, and I didn't think it was possible. and the faith is just so beyond. Like, it is just so amazing to me at how some of these authors can write faith in such a real, tangible way. And I adore this book. I can't wait for the third one to come out. So, if you've been here in the bookstagram community and booktube, then you know that A Voice in the Wind was like the book towards the end of the year, like the fall time, winter, end of the year. For us, it was so hyped. So I had to jump on the bandwagon. I already had it on my TBR, but when I saw so many friends saying, you need to read this book, what did I do? I picked it up and I read it. It's historical, biblical fiction, and if I didn't say The Autumn by the Sea, Melissa Tagg, it's Christian contemporary romance. But, y'all, wow. So, most of you probably know what this is about. I did a whole reading vlog on it, so I'm not going to say too much about it other than the way that Francine Rivers, again, she writes faith like nobody else. And I'm not saying like Francine is better than everybody, which is not what I'm saying, but she just writes it in a very specific way that just says Francine Rivers. Like, if you've read a Francine Rivers book, then you know how she writes faith. And it's just different than anybody else that I've read. Not in any better way or worse way. It's just she writes it in a way that is very specific to her, I think. And it's the gift that God has given her. And so this book touched me so deeply. It's a part of the Mark of the Lion trilogy. I haven't read the second one. I'm a little bit through it, but I stopped reading it because I was just still thinking about this one. So, wonderful book. You had to say the first several chapters, like it wasn't up until chapter 18 and 20 that I really got interested. Like, this genre is really not what I pick at all, historical biblical fiction. It was done so beautifully, the way that she grips your heart and writes such tough topics that people shy away from so often, but they need to be talked about. We all go or have gone through something that a character has gone through in this, and whether it's not something specific, again, she can hone in on that emotion and that feeling that we all have gone through, and just God just explodes on the page for me in this book. So I highly recommend A Voice in the Wind. It's during like the Roman Empire times, gladiators, things like that. There's a lot of trigger warnings for this book, but again, these, like, the Bible and stuff isn't rainbows and sunshine, and you know, she really helps depict what times could have been like during this era, and it really opened my eyes up to how, like, the people in the new church as Christians, what they really could have gone through, and worse than what Francine even details in this. It's just, it can be a hard read, but it's one of those that at the end of it, you're better because of it. Does that make sense? So just always keep that in mind and do what is best for you. The next book is another Nicole Deese, and it's A Season to Love. This was just like one that I just thought was going to be, you know, a simple little read. I actually listened to it on Kindle for free. You can also read it on there for free. And this is the second book in a Love and Lennox series. The first one wasn't really my favorite. It's like a 3.5, 4 star for me. It was very Hallmark, very cheesy. It didn't have too much depth in my opinion. Like, it was good. It was just a lighthearted read. I thought this is how this one was going to be. Y'all, it touched on some topics of anxiety and worry and control that I felt like she was speaking right to me in this book. I loved this book. Literally, when she was discussing the way that this main female character has anxiety and how it affects her, and then also how her anxiety is for her, I don't think I've ever really read a book that described it so personally to how it is for me. Loved it. It's just about this single widowed mother and her child and the hardships that they have been through, and then this man comes back into town that she knew of, and yeah, it's sweet, but it's also really real and it's raw. And I love the faith that Nicole wrote in this story. And this is like one of her older books, and the first one wasn't my favorite, especially compared to like All That Really Matters and All That It Takes that I showed before. But this one was really reminiscent of her just extraordinary writing, you know, as the ones that I mentioned before. It's phenomenal. I'm not going to say too much just because I don't want to ruin anything from the first one, but yeah, it's phenomenal, 5-star. And the last book might or might not be a surprise, actually. Have I mentioned this one? Y'all, have I talked about this one? I can't remember. I think I did. My months are all running together. Y'all, the last book that is the top 10 book of the year, and honestly really could be tied for first. This book made me feel all the things, which is Anne of Green Gables. It was the first time that I read it this year. I adore this book. I talked about it on my bookstagram. I did a full review that really came from my heart. And the only way I can describe this book is like a big warm hug. It's like seeing an old friend. And it's really rare that a book that I'm reading for the first time really makes me feel that way. Like, I was reading it and I listened to the audio, and it brought me so much comfort and peace. And that sounds maybe strange, but just Anne and her exuberance for life, just bright-eyed and open for life. But also when things, are sad, she allows herself to be sad and doesn't force herself to be this, put on this facade. And I just really love Anne and her just joy for life and learning. I really didn't think I was gonna like this because it's like a younger audience classic, and I just was like, oh, it's gonna be good. But I was like, I just didn't have a lot of high expectations. I was blown away. I'm currently starting the second book in the series this month. I cannot say enough good things about this. I'm sure most of you know what it's about. It's about this orphan, and she's been in the foster system most of her life, and then this brother and sister duo that owns a farm adopt her when she's around, I think, 12, 13, and this book goes over a span of a couple years, and it's just beautiful. I cannot tell you how much comfort that this story brought me. It was just amazing. Like, it literally felt like I was having a big warm hug while listening to this book. It was funny, it made me laugh, it also had some serious moments, and it's just so full of joy. And I think everybody should read Anne of Green Gables, no matter what age and stage of life that you're in. And it's just so beautiful. I can't wait to continue the series and see what more that happens with Anne and her story and what happens with her life. So y'all, that was my top 10 books of 2022. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it wasn't redundant, because I know that most of these books you all have seen me talk about for the most part. I just really love these books. They each touch me in a very deep, personal way. And that's why I was really meticulous about picking which ones that I got. And I recommend them to all of you. I love that we can just connect with reading and stories, and because one book touches me so deeply, it doesn't mean it's going to do that for the next person. But I love reading. I love how God can use Christian fiction and just reading in general to speak to us, to help us grow and heal. And then also to have books that are deep and might be a little hard to get through, but at the end of it, you're better because of it. And then there's books like lighter hearted ones like Anne of Green Gables that aren't so serious, but like, wow, it touched me so deeply. So yeah, I hope you all find something that you want to read or check out from my top 10 books of 2022. I pray that 2023 is such a good year for each of us. 2022 was honestly it was the hardest year of my life, but there has been so much joy woven in that pain of that 2022 has brought me and my family. And one of the biggest highlights of my year is this community, is starting a booktube channel, to have the most sincere, loving friendships. I would have never imagined it. I love this community so much, and I just want you all to know that. I pray for an amazing 2023, and I'm sorry it took me a while to get this uploaded. I have been sick this whole week, and I'm just now starting to get over it. It's Sunday, it's like the 7th or 8th of January, so I hope you all enjoy this video, and I will see you in my next one. It'll probably be my January TBR. I'll see you guys in my next one.